A Jewish photographer was sent to prove the shroud was fake and had to surrender. Picture a man who has absolutely no theological, religious, or personal reason to believe that Jesus of Nazareth rose from the dead. An Orthodox Jew, raised in a traditional family, a professional photographer used to working in advertising and science, who regards Christian miracles with total indifference, if not a touch of historical irony. This man's name is Barrie Schwortz. In 1978, when he was invited to join STURP, the Shroud of Turin research project, the prestigious American scientific team that gained direct access to the Holy Shroud, Barrie Schwortz very nearly said no. And the reason wasn't skepticism. It was his faith. What am I, an Orthodox Jew, doing on a project about a Christian relic? He asked himself. What convinced him was his friend Don Lin, a NASA scientist, with a sentence that caught him off guard. This isn't a religious project, it's pure science. And remember, the man on that cloth was a Jew too, just like you. So Schwartz accepted, but with the cool mind of a professional. He was the expedition's official documenting photographer, the man charged with recording everything with the utmost precision. He wasn't looking for a miracle. As an advertising photographer expert in pigments, paints, and emulsions, he took it for granted that science would do what every scientist expected: expose a clever medieval forgery. He was ready to photograph the proof of the hoax and go back home to Los Angeles. And yet, this man spent the last 30 years of his life traveling the world, defending the scientific authenticity of the shroud. And the most incredible part is that he didn't give in right away. What did he see through the lens of his camera that ended up forcing an Orthodox Jewish skeptic to surrender after holding out for 17 years? To understand the shock that struck the scientists even before they touched the cloth, we have to step into a NASA laboratory in the 1970s. Two members of the team, Don Lin and John Lohr, fed an ordinary photograph of the shroud into a machine called the VP8 image analyzer. This special computer was used by NASA to map the reliefs of planets and the moon in 3D, starting from flat photos sent back by space probes. Normally, if you feed a photo of a human face or a famous painting into the VP8, a distorted monstrosity appears on the monitor. The nose sinks into the eyes, the cheekbones vanish, because the light in an ordinary photo contains no mathematical information about the real spatial distance of the object. But when they inserted the plate of the shroud, the impossible happened. A perfect three-dimensional human body appeared on the monitor. The intensity of the image's shading corresponded millimeter by millimeter to the distance between the cloth and the body. That ancient sheet contained, encoded in its very fibers, three-dimensional information that no painter in history, from the Middle Ages to today, could ever have painted. It was physically impossible. It was in that moment that the scientists realized they were not dealing with a simple piece of cloth. Arriving in Turin in 1978, Schwartz began his investigation with the precision of a skeptical detective. As an advertising photographer, he knew every kind of pigment, paint, and chemical emulsion. He knew that an image on fabric must have been created with something: tempera, oil, acids, blood, or artificial heat. For 5 consecutive days and 5 nights, working grueling shifts, the STURP team subjected the shroud to spectroscopic exams, X-rays, ultraviolet fluorescence, and ultra-high-resolution microphotography. Schwartz searched desperately for traces of brushstrokes, drawing outlines, organic binders, or buildups of color between the woven threads. The result of the analyses was baffling. On the shroud, there emerged no trace of artificial pigments, no paint, no binder. The image is entirely directionless, meaning it was not created by applying something from a specific direction, the way a painter would with a brush or a dabbing pad. But the microscopic discovery that followed was even more staggering. When the scientists analyzed the individual linen fibers under a scanning electron microscope, they noticed a physical phenomenon that left the materials physicists speechless. The image of the man of the shroud does not penetrate inside the linen thread. It does not pass through the fabric. In fact, it does not even penetrate inside a single fiber. The image resides exclusively on the very outermost part of the linen microfibrils, an infinitesimal thickness of about 1/500th of a millimeter, practically the thickness of the film of starch that naturally coats linen. Scientifically, it is a dehydrating acid oxidation of the linen's carbohydrates. In plain terms, the surface of the linen was slightly yellowed, as if it had been grazed for a fraction of a second by a source of pure, uniform energy. No liquid, no gas, and no kind of paint known to man could stop at the microscopic surface of a fiber without seeping inside it by capillary action. Whoever made that image did not use matter. At this point, Schwortz's skepticism sought another route. What if it was real human blood used to paint the outlines? The biochemical analyses confirmed at once that on the shroud there is real human blood of type AB, the same type found in the Eucharistic miracles of Lanciano and Buenos Aires. But examining the close-up macro photographs of the wounds, Schwortz discovered a technical detail that made the forgery hypothesis collapse for good. The blood was deposited on the cloth before the image of the body formed. Beneath the bloodstains, there is no trace whatsoever of the body image. The linen fibers under the blood are perfectly white and free of oxidation. This means that the man of the shroud first bled onto the sheet, and only later, when the blood had already dried on the fabric, did the image of the body imprint itself onto the cloth. If a forger had painted the shroud, he would have had to first paint the bloodstains with microscopic anatomical precision, and then create the image of the body around them without letting a single atom of color end up beneath the bloodstains. It is an operation that defies all logic of execution. The science of the blood on the shroud hides yet another mystery that no scientist or forger of the Middle Ages could ever have conceived. Normally, old blood deposited on a canvas turns dark brown or black within a few hours due to the oxidation of hemoglobin, and yet the bloodstains on the shroud have remained an incredibly vivid carmine red. Why? The biochemical exams revealed that this blood is extremely rich in bilirubin. Bilirubin is a chemical that the liver pours into the bloodstream in large quantities when a body undergoes an extremely violent physical trauma, prolonged torture, scourging, and severe dehydration before death. That blood belongs to a man who was literally tortured to death, exactly as the Gospels describe. A medieval forger would not only have had to obtain real blood, he would have had to torture a man to alter his blood chemistry, centuries before science discovered the existence and behavior of bilirubin in trauma. As a professional photographer, the aspect that most obsessed Barrie Schwortz was the photographic nature of the shroud. When, in 1898, the lawyer and photographer Secondo Pia took the first historic photograph of the shroud, he was almost terrified as he developed the glass plate in his darkroom. The image on the cloth was not an ordinary positive image. It was a perfect natural photographic negative. The true positive image, with the realistic details of the face and the body, appeared only by inverting the dark and light tones on the photographic plate. Schwortz explained that to create a perfect photographic negative requires a mathematical understanding of light and of photosensitive chemistry that was only discovered in the 19th century. How could an ancient linen cloth act like a photographic film? Who, in the Middle Ages, would have painted an image that looked wrong to the naked eye, only for it to be seen correctly 1,000 years later with the invention of photography? The shroud is not a drawing, it is a snapshot of light captured in time. Many of you are probably wondering, but if all this is true, why did the carbon-14 test in 1988 declare that the shroud dated to the Middle Ages? This is the question that made millions of people doubt. But Barrie Schwortz, who knew the STURP protocols intimately, denounced from the very start the possible methodological error of that test. The sample analyzed in 1988 did not come from the main body of the shroud, but from an external lateral corner. That particular portion of fabric was one of the areas most exposed to humidity, to candle smoke, and above all, to the hands of the bishops and sovereigns who held the cloth during expositions over the centuries. Moreover, later scientific research conducted by the chemist Raymond Rogers indicates that this corner had been repaired in the Middle Ages through an almost invisible mend, known as a French reweave, inserting dyed cotton threads to make them look like ancient linen. According to this analysis, the scientists of 1988 would have dated a mixed fabric of ancient linen and medieval cotton, obtaining a falsified result. Subsequent chemical studies have called that test into question, tracing the cloth back to an origin far older than what was declared in 1988. If it is not paint, not a drawing, not a work of art, and it dates back 2,000 years, how did the image of the man of the shroud form? Today, one of the most studied physical hypotheses, including at the Italian ENEA laboratories, speaks of an intensely powerful radiation of light, a flash of ultraviolet energy, or a corona discharge released from within the very body of the man wrapped in the cloth. In that fraction of a second of pure energy, the man's body became almost transparent. The linen cloth collapsed through the body as the body emitted a radiation that literally printed the image onto the fabric, leaving the blood clots intact without tearing or smearing them. Science cannot explain the resurrection, but the shroud seems to have recorded its exact physical moment. It is the snapshot of a body conquering death by transforming into light. And here comes the part that makes his testimony so powerful. Barrie Schwortz was not convinced in those 5 days of 1978. He left Turin still a skeptic, and he remained one for another 17 years. He kept studying the data, comparing it, looking for the flaw. The turning point came only in 1995, arguing with a man who insisted the cloth was a fake, and trying to counter him point by point, he realized, almost with surprise, that by now it was he who believed in the cloth's authenticity. The evidence slowly had won him over. He never converted to Christianity. He remained a practicing Jew until his death in June 2024. And yet, he devoted the rest of his life to defending that sheet, and he explained why with disarming honesty. Science brought me before this cloth and forced me to admit the truth. I don't need to be a Catholic to recognize that this is the true burial shroud of Jesus of Nazareth. To lie about the shroud would mean lying to science. The shroud is not obligatory proof in order to believe, but it is an extraordinary gift that God left to our generation, so technological, so skeptical, and so in need of seeing in order to believe. It is the fifth gospel, written not with ink, but with the blood and the light of the resurrection. Every time we look upon that silent, tormented face, we do not see defeat. We see the definitive victory over death. If this video touched your heart and strengthened your faith, we ask you to leave a sign of your presence. Write this ancient and powerful prayer in the comments so that we may all recite it together. Lord Jesus, before your holy face, imprinted in the light, increase my faith and kindle in my heart the fire of your love.